I went to Humber College after high school. My grades were too low to get into a BA program, and I was put in the applied stream, college stream in high school. So Humber was like my year where I learned how to be a good student. I learned how to read effectively, how to write effectively. I did very, very little outside of just trying to pick up all the academic skills that I missed out on in high school. And so by the time I got here, I'd kind of like gotten over the like, can you write an essay well stuff. Like it wasn't really, that wasn't the challenge I was looking for at York. And so I believe I was originally in international development and economics, and then switched to, probably some of you in the room also have gone through a few different majors, switched to international development and anthropology, and I was confused basically is the point. And didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I chose international development because my father is from Kenya, and I didn't really grow up with him, so I figured I'll pick a major that at least let me study where he came from. And so I kind of didn't really have much of a game plan at first. And about November of my first semester as a student here, I was about one bad decision away from dropping out because I just felt like I was kind of like floating without really much of a purpose. And then I met a professor by the name of Andrea Davis, who some of you might know. And she kind of pulled me aside, and which I'll introduce as kind of maybe the first concept to really emphasize, which was like mentorship. Like I call her my second mother because she really helped me define an approach to why I was in this university in the first place. Really helped me understand the relationship between the academics I was doing and my community development objectives, how I could find myself in the material, and really made my education very relevant in a way that it wasn't before her. And so very, very quickly, I started to become very good at this school. And my first year I did very well. I would have been, like you all in this room, based on my academic performance. But for me, a lot of why I did well academically was because I linked it to some of my other objectives. I'll give you an example. So learning how to write really well, for example, in my first year became very, very important so that for the community organizations I volunteered for, I could help them write grants and do fundraising. And as I got further along in my education, I kept trying to find ways to practice what I was getting. And that really made like learning this stuff a lot more useful to me, and made me feel like there was a reason to be here. Because doing well is great, and like learning is great, and you all know how to do well, obviously. You're strong academically. But to really sustain that and go from just being like a good student to being someone who can like do great things in the world requires believing in a lot more, I think, than your own pursuits. And for me, that was certainly the case. The motivation to continue to do well. I mean, I remember getting my first year grades back and seeing how high my GPA was and being like, I don't even know if I can sustain this. Like, it might be all downhill from here, right? And really, I did sustain it, and it even got better because I kept finding motivation to do it. Give you an example. So in my second year, I took a research methodology course. So now a lot of the community organizations I was volunteering for, I could actually apply some other skills in addition to my writing to be useful. I started to see how those things walk and talk. And that made me think, okay, so like I find new purpose with every year I had here. And then in my third year, I guess you all would have missed it, but there was a strike here that year, which was terrible to go through, especially for students who, where there's a real economic opportunity cost to going to school in the first place. But in some ways it was a blessing because it gave me a chance to get out of school and again keep applying what I was learning and come back with more purpose. And that's when I decided to apply to law school because, quite frankly, and I really, really encourage you all to do this too, look at the people who have your major, look at the people who've done what you've done, and see where they are 5 years out. Like, I love international development studies, great discipline, good thing to study. I looked at the people 5 years out and said, unless I want to do another degree, I'm not going to get a job in my field, right? It's very, very rare for people, and that goes for a lot of majors. These days, a VA is not working for you the way it used to. So I said to myself, I got to do another degree if I want to at least have the option to make money. I'm not even saying money is the point, but I at least want to choose to not make money. Like, I don't want to have never had the option. So, so that's why I decided to apply to law school. So during the strike here, I was working at a warehouse, and I had, kind of manual labor jobs all throughout my post-secondary education, which provided me with a whole different set of skills and humility that I think was super valuable throughout all of this too. But I was working at a warehouse, and in between my warehouse shifts, I would study for the LSAT, the Law School Admissions Test. And that was like good inspiration. It was like good to go, all right, like I don't want to work in this warehouse forever, so it motivated me. And so by the time the strike ended and we got back here, I finished writing the LSAT, wrote the test. I remember I didn't have money for the prep course, so I had to ask my mother to borrow like $1,000 to pay for the Princeton Review prep course. And for like literally no good reason, my promise to her was like, I'll pay you back because I'm going to do well enough on this test to get a job teaching the course. And I had like no reason to believe that was true, but I figured like, well, if I fail, my mom will just feel bad for me anyway. So like, so like I will have to actually pay her back, But I did well enough to teach the course. I started teaching the course immediately afterward, and had my first like real job that didn't, where like what I thought mattered and not being able to move stuff mattered, which was like a really good, again, adding on to kind of finding purpose. It's an incredible feeling. I don't know how many of you work. I imagine, given the way our student body normally runs, a lot of you do work. And if you have a job where what you think matters, I hope you appreciate it. And if you don't, like fight to get there, because it's a great feeling to know that just not moving stuff is all you can get paid to do. So, so that's kind of how I got into law school. I really thought between the law school admissions test and the GMAT to go to do an MBA. I don't really know why I chose to do the LSAT instead, but just kind of randomly decided to do it. And that kind of opened up a whole different world of opportunities for me. As Gary mentioned at the beginning, when he was first welcoming you all, like with the grades you have, it really, really does. I think about grades as kind of like getting you through the door, and the other things that you do will make the difference between what kind of master's degrees or professional degrees or PhD programs you can get into, and the quality of jobs that you might have available to you after your BA. But certainly having that a great grade gives you a base to work with, and from that getting a great score on the LSAT really gave me the combination I needed. And then through all the work I've been doing in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods, I just kind of built a track record of success, of trying, of being good at different things. And not all those things made any sense to me at the time, I'll be honest with you. Really at the time, like this is the thing, a lot of the things you do, like for me, the stuff that became like community service, just stuff that I like do with my friends on the team that I didn't even know was a thing to put on a resume, over time I started to better understand kind of how the contours of a career gets made out of all this stuff. But certainly that wasn't the case for me in the moments. So I think it's important to kind of emphasize that in some ways you're telling a story, and the more conscious you are of the story you're trying to tell and the application you're creating is really important. So I began to, I applied to law school. Humber College, where I grew up, and this campus are literally a 30-minute radius from each other. We're riding the same buses from when I was like 6 to when I was like 22. So the reason why I applied to law schools in the U.S. was just to go see something else. I didn't want to be riding the same buses any longer. So, although I'm back on those buses now, but anyway. So that I applied to the top 10 schools in the U.S. Got into all of them. Where I didn't know whether York University, like how would be perceived by a lot of the applications. And I think that you'll find as you start to look at other potential through your graduate work in other places, that having a really good GPA and a good performance at any school really goes a long way. And that York University, because of how many graduates we pump out every year, it develops a reputation of producing a lot of students. So people see, wow, you got a really high GPA, and I know I've seen a bunch of York students, in the world, but I know you're at the kind of the top percentage of that group. And that really goes a long way. I think that was a big asset in my application. Certainly, having gone to Humber College before that was also really helpful. I'm pretty sure the only person to do my undergraduate work here and do a JD at Yale Law School, and also certainly the only person to do my undergraduate work at Humber College and do a JD at Yale Law School. So, you know, just because someone hasn't done what you want to do also doesn't mean that it can't be done either. And yeah, so spent 3 years at Yale, had a good experience, did a lot of interesting work. A question that I hope you all have in mind is like how academically prepared did I feel going there? Like most of my classmates are like private school kids, did undergraduate work at Harvard and Yale and Princeton and stuff, and so I felt very prepared. I certainly think there was a difference in terms of how prepared I was in some ways because I spent my undergraduate years with people who weren't necessarily expecting to get there. And so what I was good at in some ways was different from what other students were good at, but I think I was able to offer in my 3 years there a really different perspective than was there and would have been there otherwise. You know, it's really nice to be in a room or be in a classroom and be in an academic program and know that that seat wouldn't have been filled by someone who could have done what you did. And coming from here was kind of why that was the case, because my experience had been very different. I mean, literally in the span of 18 months, I went from moving boxes in a warehouse to sitting, you know, in Bill Clinton's seat at Yale Law School. And it's like, it's crazy that our school is kind of uniquely capable of producing those kind of outcomes for students, given who we have in the building, and given the fact that we are able to get students in those kind of incredible places afterward. So, really, really happy with kind of how you all prepared me. I'm happy to answer questions about that. And I'll end this part and kind of go to you all with questions by saying, you know, studying international development, basically the last 2 years have been me becoming increasingly less interested in international issues. And I've changed a completely different focus. I mean, I literally had this dichotomy in my head of where you either work, you know, for like social justice or you work for the private sector. My current job, I manage the Toronto practice of a consulting company that's based in Alberta, and I work in the private sector, public sector, and non-profit sector. I get to do a wide range of things. I'll be doing corporate governance law next year at Tories, and I'm also doing a huge range of community development stuff as well. I do a lot of work with policing issues in the city. I'm on the board of Children's Aid Society of Toronto. And so another thing I'll just kind of leave you with is that all the skills you're starting to develop, and clearly you're doing well in developing those skills, they are very, very transferable, and don't limit where you think you can apply them because you can wind up in really, really interesting places as long as you don't kind of put yourself in a box. And you know, it sucks when people put you in a box, and I really encourage you to always fight that, but it's even worse when you put yourself in one. So yeah, all right, I'll leave it at that because I could go on for a while. But yeah, let's do questions if that's the plan. Otherwise, you can find me afterward, you can talk to. So whatever you like is good for me. All right, do something, people.